Thank you, folks, for staying with me for a little while. And I'd like to finish the train of thought, and I really want you to stay and really listen. It probably is not pleasant. It's probably not fun, but it's critical because it is of absolutely no use for you to listen to any news broadcast if you're not thinking critically, because you'll accept and absorb what is being said. You'll log it in and pile it up with all the other stuff that you've heard, and that then will formulate your opinion. Now, what's your opinion as a result of that? Well, let me put it this way, what they call gobbledygook. And that's why you hear people go, well, I know that, like Ron Paul, I agree with what he says, but, I'm not, he goes too far. I go, oh, that's interesting. Too far or not? Well, he just takes everything too far. So can you give me an example? Well, just like foreign policy and about the environment and economics, he just goes too far. And I never understood that, but they can't define it. I had a friend of mine, and from not long ago, said, oh, I would vote for Ron Paul, but he just brings everything to an extreme, and the way things should be is everything's a compromise in this world, everything, So, you don't take the extreme on one end or the extreme on the other. And I'm listening to her. I said, that sounds so good. It sounds so reassuring. It sounds like what I hear every day. Now I feel good. I don't have to worry. In fact, now that you said that, I no longer have to think. Then I asked her this question. I said, well, let me pose a situation. Now, obviously, I'm talking about concepts here and principles. If we don't abide by the principles and we don't go here and we don't go there, we're desecrating sort of the principle. We don't believe in the principle. I said, let me give you an example. Let's say there's a guy who goes out, gets drunk every night. Gets smashed, right? Crawls home, right? Gets up, barely gets to work, can hardly work, gets off of work, goes back to the bar, does this 7 days a week. This guy is, the town's #1 alcoholic. Now, would you say, well, he's going too far? Now, I wouldn't suggest that he stop drinking altogether, right? So what he can do is just drink and get smashed 3 nights out of the week. Oh, good. We compromised. Everyone's happy. And we've done so much for this poor fella. You see, folks, we're not talking about compromising. We're talking about understanding principles. And once you abide and understand the principle, there ain't no extreme one way, extreme other. There is no extreme right or extreme left. There is the principle. Either you go out and get smashed drunk, drive home drunk, get home and pass out every night, or you don't. There's no in between. So we're talking about principles. It is important for you to understand that, because without shedding all of these beliefs we have about compromise, about every single word that comes up, we can never understand understand our role as citizens of this planet. I avoid saying the United States because it's too limiting, because it makes no difference. We're all on this ball that's flying around the sun, tremendous speeds. We're here. We're not Americans. We're just on this ball, all of us. And we should all be free people. Now, what's interesting is that why did we get this way? I like Doug Casey's explanation. He's an investment advisor, international investment advisor and author, sharp guy. He talks about the trivector of trivialization. And he says the reason why we think that way, and the reason why we can't say, I don't know, is because of our school system, number one. Number two, government propaganda, and, of course, today's media. And when you think about it, we are bombarded every day with information that allows us to only think we know or believe that we know what is going on. And that's exactly the way they want it. Now, I'd like to do a separate program on the school system. I love talking about our school system. I hate our school system. I disagree with all of it. I think it should be disbanded, and I will do a whole program on it. But understand this. Could you imagine if every student was truly educated, didn't just go to school to memorize and to pass the test for the No Student Left Behind Act, but they actually thought, they actually had this in their minds. They were critical thinking. Everyone, every kid came out of school that way, even in elementary school. What do you think would happen? People would look at our form of government. First of all, they would never have tolerated the form of government we have now. Would never gotten where we are. Never. And they would never allow it to persist, even if it did come about. Because people would say, sorry, makes no sense, ain't going to happen. Review the Constitution, which is a document we don't need. I'm an advocate of the Constitution. We don't need it. Because we are, by the law of nature, absolutely sovereign and free people by virtue of the fact that we are citizens of this planet. Now, once we start thinking that way, then everything else can make sense. Then we can discuss issues. Before that, we can discuss absolutely nothing. Consider this program a prerequisite for most other programs. Right? You have to understand what we're saying here before you can listen to most other programs. Not all of them, but most others. And folks, it is amazing. Not only do we have the trifecta of trivialization, but something else comes to mind. When we're young, do we agree or disagree with our parents? No, most kids, I tell you, some kids don't, but most kids, my father's nuts, he's old-fashioned. I used to say that, my father, he's old-fashioned, he's from the old country. He doesn't understand what's going on. My father used to say things such as, Giuseppe, remember, never own anything. Could you imagine that? Never own anything. This guy's a whack. What's the matter with this guy? So when I grew up, when I got a good job, I started accumulating stuff. I got more stuff. I tell you, I can make a garage sale of garage sales for all the stuff I have that I never use, that I have to maintain or store. And now at 69 years old, guess what I tell my kids? My kids who are in their 40s, I say, hey, never own anything. You see, we not only are not educated properly in our school system, we are divorced from being educated by our parents. Our parents do not understand the essence of liberty, so they can't pass it on to you. Then we have the government propaganda. Then we have the daily news media, bombarded day and night. And then we're rebellious, and even when our parents say something that's correct, we tell them they're wrong. You want to know why we got this way? Why? Folks, we got this way because it's exactly the way our society is run. And everything about this program will run against the grain. I'd like you to listen to this program every week. And I'd love for you to send your comments to me. Comments at libertytalkradio.com. I promise I will ask each one, and especially your criticisms. If we could truly understand the essence of critical thinking and why that is an absolute necessity to the concept of freedom, once we understand that, we can all go forward. I bet there's a lot of government officials who would never want that to happen. This is Joe Cristiano. This is Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well, stay tuned.